Have you ever really looked at the money in your wallet? I mean, not just the number, but the images, the faces, the symbols. We handle these little pieces of paper every single day. But there's so much more than just a way to buy things. Today, we're going to break down how banknotes are a silent, powerful broadcast of national identity.
All right, let's just dive right into this uncomfortable idea. Every country, whether they admit it or not, prints its ideology onto its money. These are carefully calculated political messages. It's a form of what sociologists call banal nationalism, those everyday, almost invisible ways our national identity gets reinforced. We take part in it with every purchase, and it's designed to tell a very specific story about power.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the US dollar and then contrast it with the radical emptiness of the euro. We'll explore the rich tapestry of the Mexican peso and the double message of the British pound, before zooming out to see the hidden patterns across the globe.
First up, the global benchmark, the US dollar. To understand the language of money, you really have to start here.
What's so striking here is the consistency. Just look at this lineup. It is an exclusive club of men who were instrumental in either founding the republic, preserving it through war, or building its financial institutions. There's a very clear, repeating theme.
But the story the dollar tells is also defined by who's left out. You don't see modern scientists or celebrated artists or leaders from minority communities. And with very few exceptions on commemorative coins, women are historically absent. Now, this isn't an accident. It's the result of a very specific narrative choice.
So the bottom line is this. The US dollar's imagery directly equates national value with this state itself, with presidents, generals, and treasury secretaries. It's a powerful message that suggests the nation's strength comes from its political and military leadership, and pretty much nothing else.
Now let's jump to our next case to see how this idea is built. In stark contrast to the American model, you have the euro, which made the radical decision to feature, well, nobody at all.
And this illustrates the choice they made so brilliantly. On the left, you can see one of the proposed designs for the euro, featuring a human face. On the right, the design that was ultimately chosen, generic, anonymous architecture. So why the deliberate void? The concept behind the design is fascinating. The bridges, windows, and gateways you see on euro notes don't actually exist anywhere. They are archetypal representations of different European architectural eras. They're designed to feel familiar, but they don't belong to any one country, preventing any single nation from claiming the currency as its own.
This wasn't an aesthetic choice, it was a deeply political one. On a continent scarred by centuries of nationalist wars, often fueled by heroic myths, putting a German hero or a French philosopher on the money was a non-starter. The euro's neutrality, its silence, was a strategy for unity.
Okay, now for a completely different approach. The Mexican peso offers a masterclass in how to weave together the many layers of a national story.
The most recent series of banknotes in Mexico, the G family, is incredibly rich. Yeah, you've got the political leaders you'd expect, but you also have one of the Spanish language's greatest poets, Sor Juana. You have representations of pre-Hispanic cultures. And on the back of every single note, an entire ecosystem is celebrated, like the Xochimilco wetlands with its famous axolotl. This was a deliberate choice, developed with major universities and historical institutes.
And this gets to a profound difference. While the dollar focuses almost exclusively on the formation of the modern political state, the peso uses its currency to build a much broader identity, one that includes its deep cultural, natural, and pre-colonial history. It's a reminder of a heritage that's much older than the current government.
Our last case study, the British pound, presents another fascinating model, one that manages to project both ancient tradition and modern meritocracy at the exact same time.
Here's how it works. On the front of every Bank of England note, you have the reigning monarch. This represents the unchanging, continuous nature of the state itself. But then you flip it over, and you find figures celebrated for their individual achievements, people like Alan Turing or Jane Austen. It's a message of stability on one side and dynamic, merit-based contribution on the other.
This is actually a relatively modern tradition. Before 1960, British notes featured an allegorical figure, Britannia. It was Queen Elizabeth II who became the first monarch to appear, establishing a powerful visual symbol of stability that has just recently transitioned to King Charles III. While some nations celebrate revolution, the pound prints continuity.
All right, let's zoom out. We've looked at 4 distinct models. What broader patterns can we spot when we look at currencies from all around the world?
Let's start with one stark number. Globally, only about 15% of banknotes feature an image of a woman. And historically, when they do appear, they're often either allegorical figures like liberty or they're monarchs by birthright. The depiction of women for their own achievements is still incredibly rare.
The bottom line is you can see clear trends. Nations born from revolution or independence struggles, like the US, tend to put their founding heroes on their money. Supranational unions trying to avoid conflict, like the Eurozone, opt for neutral, abstract symbols. And constitutional monarchies often use the monarch's portrait as a symbol of uninterrupted state power. A country's history is literally printed in your pocket.
And this brings us to our final thought. Banknotes aren't just historical documents, they are statements of value. They are a reflection of the official story a nation tells about itself. So the next time you have a bill in your hand, ask yourself, what story is this money telling me?